我哋講下古老小麥嘅歷史先啦。
As you understand, Einkorn is a very ancient grain, and it's been kept alive here mostly because it's been capable of growing in the conditions that we have.
咁其實咧，古老小麥咧都係主要喺呢一個環境或者係呢一個地區啦，因為咧嗰個環境啊、氣候啊各樣咧係最適合古老小麥嘅。
But Einkorn almost disappeared because of the complexity of cleaning it.
咁但係其實咧，古老小麥咧其實咧係幾乎係消失咗㗎啦，就係因為咧佢係要清潔佢咧係好麻煩，好多程序嘅。
The complexity comes from what we call the husk of the Einkorn, the husk.
嗰個複雜性咧，其實就係喺佢嗰個外殼啊。
Contrary to modern wheat, to rice or other grains, where the husk is not that difficult to get away, Einkorn has a very thick and very strong layer of protection, very big husk.
對比起普通嘅麥咧，其實古老小麥嗰個外殼咧係非常之硬啦、韌啦，同埋好難咧去整走嘅。
I've given you Einkorn that's out of the field that has the husk.
咁頭先咧 Nicholas 咧都俾咗大家幾粒古老小麥啦，係連埋嗰個外殼，咁大家可以試下咧去剝佢。
If you press on this end rather strong,
如果你好大力咁搣喺邊嗰度啦，
you will extract the berry.
佢會攞走裡面嗰個心嘅。
The berry is what is edible.
嗰個心咧，英文叫 berry 咧，就係食得嘅部分啦。
It weighs as much as the husk.
佢咧同出邊個外殼咧係一模一樣咁重嘅。
Which means if we get 1,000 kilos of grain outside of our field, we only have 500 kilos that is something edible.
所以咧，當我哋去收割古老小麥嘅時候，當我哋收割到1000公斤嘅時候咧，其實我哋得500公斤嘅食得嘅古老小麥咯。
And it is a difficult task to get this husk taken away from the grain so that we have just edible material.
而要將嗰個外殼咧整走，剩翻裡面個心咧，其實係好複雜、好難嘅事情嚟嘅。
This is the husk Einkorn, cleaned.
呢個咧就係已經整走咗外殼嘅古老小麥啦。
So Einkorn was almost abandoned because of this.
就因為咁複雜嘅去外殼嘅程序咧，咁其實當地嘅政府咧係取消咗唔俾當地嘅農夫咧去耕種呢個古老小麥嘅。
But it stayed alive in this region of France because contrary to wheats, Einkorn is capable of withstanding very dry, no water, and it's capable of just surviving here.
咁但係咧，點解呢個地方咧係可以種到古老小麥咧？就係因為咧佢同雜草一樣咧，係可以咧係頂得順呢一啲咁乾旱嘅環境嘅。
It takes 11 months to grow.
佢呢個需時咧要11個月咧係去耕種嘅。
Which is very long for a grain.
咁對比係一啲穀物咧係一個好長嘅時間。
It is mostly planted end of September, beginning of October.
通常咧係大概9月尾或者10月頭開始種嘅。
And will be harvested end of August, beginning of September.
咁而大概8月尾至9月頭咧就可以收割㗎啦。
During autumn, Einkorn will germinate and grow into a small grass.
咁喺秋天嘅時候咧，佢會發芽啦，跟住然之後咧變成一啲好似草嘅。
It'll stay this way throughout winter.
咁喺冬天嘅時候咧，就一路係變就係咁樣，好似草咁樣啦。
But during that time, it'll grow very deep roots.
但係當其時咧，其實咧你覺得冇嘢喺上面啦，但係其實係好深有啲根咧係一路落到好深嘅。
Much deeper than wheat or other grains.
比雜草啊或者係其他穀物咧係仲要深嘅嗰啲根。
This is also what allows Einkorn to survive harsh and dry weather but it also allows it to go and obtain different minerals and really be well established.
亦都因為咁啦，啲根咁深咧，佢可以咧頂得順嗰啲咁乾旱嘅環境啦，同埋同時間咧係可以吸收到地下嗰啲嘅礦物質啊或者營養嘅。
The second reason why einkorn was kept alive in this region, it's because it's an amazing rotation crop for lavender.
咁另外一個原因點解古老小麥咧喺而家嘅有得種嘅原因咧，就係因為佢係一個好好嘅rotation 輪耕嘅農作物係同薰衣草去輪住咁樣耕種。
Once lavender has been in a field for 10 years, we need to bring back a lot of organic matter. We need to change the crops to break insect cycles. We need to rotate. And einkorn was the perfect crop because it can grow here, it can survive without water, and it needs nothing. It doesn't need fertilizer, it doesn't need anything at all. So even if you were not an organic farmer, you would still put nothing on einkorn.
咁個原因點解古老小麥喺度種咧？咁就係當你咧種咗10年薰衣草嘅時候咧，其實咧嗰塊地咧你就要換㗎啦。咁佢哋通常咧就會種古老小麥啦，但係種古老小麥咧原來咧你係無需要理會佢任何嘢嘅，就連肥田料咧都唔需要加嘅。咁所以咧佢係好隨意咁，所以咧就算咧一啲普通嘅農民咧，佢哋都照係種呢個古老小麥嘅。
It is a very interesting product because of its nutritionals.
咁呢一個古老小麥咧，其實都好特別嘅，因為咧佢好多營養喺裏面嘅。
I'm not going to talk too much about it, but there's a lot of information you can find, and Gary also wrote a book about einkorn if you're interested.
咁Nicholas 咧就唔會講太多古老小麥有幾有營養啦，因為咧其實 Gary 咧就寫咗一本書係正係講古老小麥嘅。
But like anything that is interesting nutritionally, it also means einkorn is fragile.
咁同其他一啲好有營養嘅食物啦，咁古老小麥咧都係一個好脆弱嘅一個嘅農作物或者食物嚟嘅。
So it also means that when we have this facility, the entire facility, and I'll explain this to you, is working and built in a way to protect the nutritional content at all costs.
所以個原因咧，所以更加咧就係呢一個咁樣嘅倉庫咧，係為咗去保護呢一個嘅古老小麥咧而建造，因為佢好脆弱。
Just to tell you a little bit the history with einkorn and Young Living because it's quite funny.
咁因為咧佢想講一講嗰個Young Living 同呢個古老小麥嘅聯繫啊，都幾特別幾搞笑嘅。
Gary was doing a lot of research on the original grain, the most ancient grain, and he was looking for it around the world.
咁 Gary 咧當時咧其實佢就喺度研究緊邊度有得揾到一啲古老嘅古老嘅麥嘅穀物啦嚇。咁但係咧佢就一路揾，全世界都喺度揾緊嘅。
He was going to India, he was doing research, he was really trying to find this ancient grain.
佢就周圍去啦，跟住又去到印度啦，咁又喺度研究啦，咁一路想揾一個古老嘅穀物嘅。
But he had no idea it was actually growing on his farm in France.
但係原來咧，佢一啲都唔知道佢喺佢自己嘅農場已經喺度種緊。
And it's not Gary's fault.
但係唔關 Gary 事。
We never talked about einkorn.
因為佢哋原來冇講過古老小麥呢一樣嘢。
Because for us, nobody knew or cared or wanted einkorn.
因為對佢哋嚟講咧，冇人咧係要呢一個嘅古老小麥嘅。
All of the farmers would grow it, but mostly they'd either keep it for themselves to eat, give it to local bakeries, and it was very common in this very small region in France, but we never thought that anybody wanted or was interested in einkorn, so we never talked about it. It was just a good rotation crop.
咁所以因為佢嗰個呢個嘅農作物古老小麥咧，其實係一個輪耕嘅 我諗錯咗，輪耕係 OK， 輪耕嘅農作物啦，咁所以咧其實喺當地農民咧根本係覺得係習以為常係冇嘢嘅，佢冇諗住係咁有興，即係會有人咁有興趣咁大嘅需求，佢淨係喺自己屋企用啊，或者俾啲即係bakery 即係烘焙嘅人用啊，咁完全冇諗過有人會有興趣嘅咯。
I grew up eating Einkorn. It was very common. We would only eat Einkorn bread. It was always in our house, but it was never something we talked about.
咁其實 Nicholas 咧由細到大都係食緊古老小麥嘅，但係佢從來冇諗過，即係呢個咁習以為常嘅一個嘅習慣或者飲食係會有人有興趣，因為佢從來冇諗住去講嘅。
So one day my father actually, knowing the nutritional benefits of Einkorn, said, I should talk to Gary about it because I'm sure that he would actually, think it's interesting.
咁因為知道佢爸爸知道Gary 咧，佢即係都對一啲有益嘅食物咧係有興趣啦。咁佢突然之間忽發奇想就話其實我應該同 Gary 講下呢一個呢個古老小麥有幾好喎咁啊。
And at that time, I've always loved cooking. I cook a lot. And so my father said, make different dishes with Einkorn, and Gary's coming, and we'll make him, a nice dinner, and we'll say, hey, maybe you could be interested in this grain, and we have some, interesting analysis we've done.
咁佢爸爸就同Nicholas 講，因為 Nicholas 咧原來好中意煮嘢食嘅喎，咁佢就叫 Nicholas， 不如你煮啲一餐飯，所有嘅嘢都係由古老小麥嗰度製造，即係煮成，跟住然之後咧就話俾 Gary 聽，等佢知道呢一個古老小麥都係幾好嘅嘢嚟嘅喎咁啊。
So you can imagine how much we laughed and how much Gary laughed when he realized that we were presenting the grain he had been traveling around the world to find, literally on the farm here, grown by the farmers.
咁所以你可以諗到嗰一刻 Gary 係幾喜出望外，同埋覺得好傻嘅一件事，因為佢走勻全世界都揾唔到嘅嘢，竟然喺佢自己嘅農場嗰度揾到嘅呢個古老小麥啦。
So the strengths of Einkorn is that it's never been genetically modified. It's that it has very interesting nutritionals. But there's one strength that we don't often talk about that to me is also very important.
咁其實咧，除咗呢一個古老小麥有好豐富嘅營養之外啦，咁其實仲有一樣嘢咧，佢係未講嘅。
When we decided to grow and expand Einkorn and present it more to the world,
當佢哋咧開始咧覺得要再種多啲古老小麥，然之後去介紹俾呢個世界嘅人知道咧。
Gary had a very crazy idea.
Gary 有一個好變態嘅諗法，好瘋狂 ，OK， 好瘋狂嘅諗法。
He had this idea that we should sell Einkorn at the price so that the farmer can make money from growing it.
咁佢就覺得咧，佢要用一個價錢咧，去令到咧嗰啲農民咧係可以賺到錢嘅。
It's a crazy idea because if you take any grains in the world and any farmer, they need subsidies in order to grow a grain.
呢個咧係好瘋狂嘅諗法，因為咧市面上咧其他嘅農作物咧，嗰啲農民咧其實係要政府去資助佢哋咧，先至可以賺到錢嘅。
So if they grow a grain, if the government needs to give them money because the price at which they will sell is far less than what it costs to grow that grain.
因為咧一般嘅農作物咧嘅穀物咧，其實咧係需要政府嘅資助先至可以賺到錢，因為佢原本佢嗰個cost 嗰個成本係啦係非常之高嘅，比賣嘅好低咯。
So it wasn't actually a crazy idea Gary had. It was a normal idea. The rest of the world is stupid.
咁其實所以咧唔係一個傻嘅，即係瘋狂嘅諗法，只不過係 Gary 唔係，只不過係一個係好 stupid， 即係好傻嘅諗法。
This is important because it is the freedom of the farmer. If they grow einkorn, they earn an income from that crop that allows them to feed their family without needing to beg for money or ask anyone.
咁所以咧，其實呢一樣嘢咧，正正係幫到當地嘅農民啦，因為佢哋喺賣呢一個古老小麥咧，係賺到嘅錢咧，佢就唔再需要咧政府嘅資助啦。
So it's something very important.
所以係非常之重要嘅。
And the well-being of the farmers and the land is something that is very much a part of Seed to Seal. This is why for Gary there was no question. If we were to do einkorn and grow it and share it with the world, it needed to be set at a price that the farmers would have a good margin for the work that they did.
咁所以咧，其實喺種子到蜂蜜呢一樣嘢咧，其實唔係淨係耕種嗰個即係嗰個需要嘅，係直情咧要諗埋嗰個農民佢哋嗰個得益。咁所以咧，佢哋諗到呢一個方法咧。咁咧就可以咧幫助到佢哋個農民咧，可以咧自己咧自給自足，又可以咧賺到錢。
So let me quickly tell you about this facility.
好，等我哋講下呢一個倉庫。
When einkorn is harvested, it is never going to lose its husk. The husk is too big, too thick, but it's also a great layer of protection for the berry.
咁當古老小麥咧佢哋收割嘅時候咧，佢係永遠咧都有一個好硬嘅外殼啦。咁但係咧呢個外殼咧係正正咧係可以保護到佢裡面嗰個心。
And so the freshly harvested einkorn within the husk like you have, and other grains that were in that field and rocks that were in that field, everything is brought here, and actually there's a little side here. It is dumped and it is loaded into the 2 silos that you have outside.
咁當呢一啲古老小麥咧收割嘅時候咧，佢係連埋嗰啲外殼啦，連埋嗰啲嘅其他嘅穀物啦，同埋有可能啲碎沙石啊咁樣。咁咧，然後咧就會去到側邊嗰啲嘅2桶好大嘅silos， 佢哋英文叫。
It can be stored in those silos that have humidity and temperature control. It can be stored with the husk on for up to a year without losing any of its nutritional.
咁原來咧嗰啲 silos 咧係有一啲嘅氣温啦，同埋濕度嘅控制嘅。咁呢啲嘅 silos 咧係可以咧 keep 住嗰啲嘅古老小麥咧係1年以上嘅。1年到係。
So we leave the einkorn like this with the husk the longest before we want a product. We never clean the einkorn and take the husk off because that would start damaging the grain.
咁原來咧佢喺度 keep 住啦，喺個 silo 嗰度啦，咁係可以 keep 到咧佢嗰個營養價值喺裏面啦。咁同埋咧佢當佢用嘅時候咧，先至去整走個外殼。
Only when we want to make a product, we clean the berries and we want to do it quickly.
當我哋需要賣嗰個產品嘅時候咧，我哋先至去整走個外殼嘅，同埋clean 清潔佢。
When we're ready, we have a system that will take the einkorn from the silos and bring them 2 stories over us.
咁我哋ready 嘅時候咧，咁咧就喺個 silos 嗰度咧就會運咧喺個屋頂上面嘅，咁就運過嚟咧去嗰邊咁樣。
Up there we have a very smart dehusking unit, which is a rotating hammer that'll press on every berry and it'll push the berries through, I think I have one here, through a mesh system. No more.
咁喺上面經過嘅時候咧，佢就會有一個嘅旋轉嘅錘仔係啦，一路敲打嗰啲嘅古老小麥啦，咁敲扁嗰個嘅外殼啦，咁就經過呢一啲咁樣嘅窿，咁好似一個網咁樣嘅。
It'll press the berries so that it pushes the berries through, but takes away and separates the husk from the berries.
咁所以咧個錘仔咧其實咧係 the hammer is inside，right？
Yes.
咁咧佢就會除嗰啲嘅古老小麥啦，咁嗰啲芯咧就會喺嗰啲窿走出去，咁然之後咧就會整走嗰個外殼㗎啦。咁頭先我拎過咧係好重嘅，係啊。咁所以個旋轉嗰個錘仔咧，其實喺入邊咁樣除佢咯。
Once this has happened, the berries have been separated from the husk, but everything is still mixed together. The husk, the berries, the little rocks that were able to be carried from the field, maybe some other grains that ended up in there. So we need to clean so that we're left with only whole Einkorn.
咁呢一個過程咧，其實咧包括埋一啲沙石啦，同埋可能有機會係有其他嘅谷物啦，仲有佢嘅外殼同埋個芯咧，都係撈埋一齊嘅。咁所以咧，佢要諗辦法咧去清洗啦，同埋去令到嗰個嘅古老小麥咧，淨係個芯要出嚟嘅啫。
On the floor right beneath, we have two machines. The first one is going to have a mesh system. Everything longer and shorter than Einkorn is going to fall through. And this machine also has a suction system. Anything lighter than an Einkorn berry will be taken away.
其實上面咧就有一個好聰明嘅系統啦。咁任何佢首先咧有一個網啦，咁就啱好咧係細過嗰個嘅芯嘅。咁所以咧有啲咩沙石啊或者其他嘅谷物咧，佢就會跌落去啦。咁就剩翻嗰啲嘅芯喺度啦。同埋咧佢上面咧有一啲嘅吸嘅系統啦，咁就係吸到一啲嘅嗰啲外殼啦，咁輕過嗰啲芯咧，佢就吸走佢啦。
Then we have another machine that rotates, and anything thicker and shorter in size than the berries, thinner or thicker than the berries will be taken out.
Thinner and thicker?
Yes. At first it was everything longer and shorter, and now it's anything thinner and thicker.
Okay.
Hey.
咁因為咧嗰啲嘅古老小麥咧，其實係一樣 size 嘅，咁所以咧佢有一個嘅機械咧，佢係去篩選翻有一啲係長過佢啦，或者短過佢啦，或者係厚過佢或者薄過佢，咁就啱好所有嘅古老小麥咧都 keep 翻喺度啦。
At this point we have almost clean berries, but we have one important very last step here.
咁而家咧，其實咧大部分嘅芯咧已經係集齊咗啦。咁而家咧就有一個嘅 machine 咧，就係可以睇到。
This is called a color sorter.
呢個就係叫做 what？
A color sorter. It sorts things by color.
Color sorter。咁即係咧去揀個顏色啊。
This machine has a lot of cameras.
咁呢一個嘅機械咧係有好多嘅鏡頭嘅。
At a very, very high speed inside of this machine, the grains are falling like this, like rain.
咁喺上面咧，佢係跌落嚟啦，用高速咁樣跌落嚟啦。
It'll look at every single grain, and if any of the grains are of a different color than Einkorn, darker or any rocks, anything that is not the color of an Einkorn berry, a little flash of air will blow on that grain and get it out.
咁喺嗰個管道嘅時候咧，佢有一個好多嘅鏡頭啦，就睇住有一邊啲嘅粒子咧係同個古老小麥嘅芯咧係唔同顏色嘅。如果係唔同或者深色或者淺色咧，咁佢就知咧唔係古老小麥，然後咧就會用一個好快嘅吹嘅形式啦，咁就吹走嗰啲唔啱嘅嘢啦。
This is a very racist machine.
所以呢個係好種族歧視嘅一個機械嚟嘅。
Once all of this is done,
當所有嘢完成嘅時候咧
right now we're not doing it, but if we wanted to, we could make flour.
咁啊而家咧仲未整嘅，不過咧我哋咧其實可以咧係去整麵粉嘅喺呢一個機器嗰度磨成粉啊。
But like I said,
咁但係正如我所講啦，
einkorn is very fragile.
古老小麥咧係好脆弱嘅。
Modern mills to make flour usually use what we call metal rollers to break and grind the berries.
咁啊，現代嘅磨坊咧，其實咧係用一啲嘅what did you use?
Modern mills use metal rollers to grind and make the flour. Yes.
現代嘅磨坊咧，其實係用兩個圓形嘅磨嘅鐵，用鐵做不鏽鋼做嘅鐵嘅即係嘢咧係去磨嘅。
But this process creates a lot of heat.
但係呢一個程序咧係有好多熱量產生嘅。
Heat would degrade the nutritionals of the einkorn.
而熱量咧係會令到嗰啲嘅古老小麥咧係失去咗嗰啲嘅營養嘅。
So to make flour, we decided to go with a different process.
咁所以呢度咧，佢哋就用唔同嘅方法去磨粉啦。
The different and the process we use is called a stone mill.
咁呢個咧就係用石磨嘅。
We have two very large stones, one rotating inside that will grind the flour very well, but that will not produce the heat that a modern mill would.
咁呢度咧有兩個嘅石磨啦，咁但係咧對比而家現代嘅石磨咧，現代嘅磨坊啦，咁呢個咧石咧就唔會有個熱量產生嘅。
We would produce flour only if it's ready to be bagged in a controlled aired bag, or if we want to make another product like pasta, but we would not make the flour a month in advance to make pasta. We would make the flour a couple days maximum in advance to really have a fresh product all the time.
咁所以佢哋需要磨粉嘅時候咧，佢係唔會預先磨嘅，佢最多咧係2-3日前咧先至會磨嗰個粉啦。咁 so that 咧嗰啲嘅麵粉咧係最新鮮嘅。
High five. Any questions?
有冇問題啊？So just now they have a question about einkorn, whether the einkorn can brew beer.
Can what?
Brew beer.
Yes.
可以啊，頭先個問題就係啲古老小麥可唔可以整啤酒
？Like any grain, it can be sprouted, melted, and turned into beer. Yes.
咁Nicholas 就話可以啦，因為同一般嘅麥咧係一樣嘅。
Not for us, but some farmers do very good. Yeah.
咁Young Living 唔會做啦，但係咧有一啲嘅農民咧係會用呢個古老小麥整啤酒嘅。
Yes. So that's the amount of husk that we leave inside of the flour. The husk is that layer around the berry. So.
What was the question?
How much? The T60. No, it's the husk. It's fiber actually. It's fiber percentage.
Bread, it's like a different.
Yeah, but T50, T65, all of this, it's the fiber. It's not protein, but it's the husk. It's the fiber content.
It's a bread flour instead of a cake flour.
Yeah.
You guys can make everything.
We can make anything, but I'll explain. This grinds. Then you go to the top over there, which is called the planchester. The planchester, you can put a screen, and it shakes, and through that screen you can take bigger chunks of husk,
The flour?
The hull, anyway, the hull, that part, the skin of the berry, you can take the large parts off, or you can make very white flour that has none of the fiber, only basically the glucid. We could choose, but when we make flour to sell, we make whole flour. We don't take anything off. When we make pasta, we take a little bit off the bigger chunks because it would break the pasta. And the only time we make I would say about a T80, which is the lowest we go. It's when we make spaghettis, because spaghettis very thin, and so if there's a chunk of the hull, it'll break. But when you buy Einkorn flour, it's what we call a whole flour.
咁個問題咧就係話有啲麵粉咧原來咧有啲唔同嘅粗幼嘅度數嘅，咁呢度咧都可以有做到嘅。咁佢有幾個款啦，咁啊最粗咧就係佢通常咧都係最粗嗰個粉啦。咁跟住去到最幼咧，佢哋整意大利粉 spaghetti 嗰個先至係去到差唔多 T80咁樣嘅幼細度咯。
Oui, madame.
You talk about to keep the freshness, so you will never pre-make that. So my question is, if I'm a bakery, I want to order the flour from you, and then so then you make the flour. So how long to keep the freshness?
So when we make flour, to make a bag of flour, we make flour, we bring it to a company that bags it, seals it, and takes away the oxygen and puts CO2. Because that's the way to preserve it. So when you buy a bag of flour from us, it is sealed and it is protected and it is safe for 1 year. The bad thing to do would be to make flour, leave it in an open bag like this, wait 4 months, then put it in a bag and sell it to you. What I mean by this is like we want to keep this very fresh, but it still means you can use your flour for a year. As soon as you open the bag with Einkorn, keep it in the fridge. Keep it in the fridge, keep it well closed, and don't keep it for 6 months. Try and utilize it. It's not going to be bad, but it will lose some of the nutritionals.
Okay.
When we make pasta, we have a pasta maker that makes it very specifically using an old technique that doesn't cook the pasta to dry, but they shape and then they let dry at low temperature over 4 days. But we make the flour and we drive to the pasta maker, and the next day they make the pasta. The freshest, the best.
咁頭先就係個問題咧，就係話嗰啲嘅粉咧磨咗之後點樣去儲存啦，同埋儲存幾耐啦。咁其實咧嗰啲嘅佢而家磨完之後咧，就即刻送去一個廠啦，咁去整走嗰啲嘅氧氣啦，然後就擺一啲嘅 CO2 係咩啊？二氧化碳係啦，二氧化碳，然之後咧就再封口，咁到買嘅時候咧，其實可以儲存1年嘅，咁到買嘅時候開嘅時候咧，咁你就擺落去，開咗之後擺落雪櫃就得㗎啦。
So to thank all of you for coming, we're going to go back on the bus, but the staff will give you a bag of puffed Einkorn with honey.
咁咧多謝大家嚟啦，咁咧我哋咧每人咧就會得到一個我哋朝頭早好中意食嗰個 puff Einkorn 嘅 berry 啦。
You will be brought back to the hotel, and then you'll have a very short amount of time to come back, and we will distill together the wild lavender that you've harvested, and then we'll have a nice dinner together, okay?
咁我哋翻去嘅時候咧，我哋好快咧又會上翻車，翻轉頭咧就睇我哋琴日咧收割咗嗰啲嘅野生嘅薰衣草啦，然後喺呢個咁靚嘅地方咧食晚飯㗎啦。
My thing is gathering dust. I could make flour